Ooh. Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Here I am, the Orange Man. Ooh, right. We had 4 days of like 18-degree weather in the evening, 20-degree weather in the morning, and then it'd get up to a balmy, 32. But right today, it was 18 this morning. But right now it's like 56. So the next few days supposed to be sunny like this. But those few days, we had leaves on all these trees about a week ago. Now, that really cold weather dropped everything, right? So everything is ready for winter, and the sun is out, right? There's the sun. So how you guys doing? How you dealing with what's going on in the world? Right? The Ukraine war, you know. Donnie says he's going to help the Ukrainians, and he tacos out, and Vlad is like, Vlad is being sucked dry by the succubus of international laws. I mean, here's a guy who's just totally trashed. Anyway, I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to an undisclosed location this winter. Instead of being sleeping on concrete, I'm going to babysit someplace that will be very comfortable and warmed and a nice bed and all that good stuff through the winter. So that'll be good. And I'll be in a location that I can walk to places, which will really be good because I didn't get my hip replaced, and I have been taking these. Ooh, that doesn't look good. The mountain, 2 mountains away, there's a big smoke cloud because there's all these trees that were trashed during the hurricane of last year, September storm Helene, and a ton of leaves. And though it snowed and rained the last 2 days, um, it's still a lot of fuel. So that's only 2 mountain ridges away. It's not windy, so I don't know. I don't know if somebody's burning something or uh-oh. Anyway. So anyway, that's what's going on, and basically, I just let go. I stopped thinking about it. I stopped planning. I am Mr. Fix It. I'm Mr. Strategy. All of those things. I just said no. I'm going to let Jesus Christ take care of everything, and that's what I keep. I had a great night last night talking to Jesus, and everything works out when you let go, and you are the biggest sin, the only real sin there really is, all of the, fornication and blah, 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 blah. No, you know, unless you're a succubus, one of those Torah lawyers, that Paul was. Paul was like a used car salesman trying to kill as many Christians as he could until, Jesus caught him on the side of the road and said, yo, buddy. And then he really, before he was just, a real estate agent, then he became a used car salesman once he went all in for Jesus. And pretty much Paul didn't write squat. It was Mark, Luke, all the other guys, right? All those letters, right? So the New Testament, if you want to really read the Bible, just get the New Testament. If you are like a holiday historian like me, yeah, the Torah is interesting. But I already studied it as a rabbi student, so I already been there. So, but all the Baptists, they just love to roll in the mud of the Torah, and they just quote it up a kazoo, and then they do exactly that John 19:4 says, and then they go do it themselves, and like blow it apart. And but we're the chosen ones, No, but you're Baptists, The other guys are the chosen ones. And that's why it always sucks for them because they're the chosen ones. Kind of like Job. Just go read Job. Don't they look good as an orange guy? Look at that orange tint. Because I am wearing the most orange coat known to the universe, and it like just freaks out the little lens here and turns everything into orange. Like the hat I'm wearing is really green, not orange, right? So, and that's the world we're seeing. Yeah, I'm doing this. It's kind of an optical illusion. I'm sitting in the sun just on the edge. So the bottom part of me is like, ooh, really bright, but the other part of me is in shade. So the lens is cutting it in half and turning, my all the edges of my face into orange, and the hat that's green into orange. And that's the illusion, see? And that's what this show is about. It's about the illusion. Dreamy Dreamland, right? I constantly, for the last 10 years, I've been telling you stories. I'm your griot. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland, where this guy here, Sensie Owl Bob, this guy here is to tell you a story, and don't believe a word he says, right? I love me my Donald Trump because he lies so much he tells the truth. He's told everyone he's going to destroy America. I mean, for 4 years after the 20 election was stolen, and he just went on, and he showed what he's going to do in 28. I mean, come on, kids. Meaning that 4 years with not sleepy Joe, dead Joe. He was like a zombie, that boy, right? And they put Cammie in because she was the only Democrat who could lose to Donald Trump. So anyway, I mean, all of this stuff is, if you can't see that everything is scripted, that Donald Trump is just a game show host. He did it for the only thing he really made money at was, other than grifting. Man, that boy is the best grifter there is. But he made, $100 million every year for those 11 years that he was, he was the apprentice. He was on that TV show. He was apprenticing to be president, just like good old Ronald Reagan was on the GE Theater. He was the face on the GE Theater, and 20 Mule Teen Borax, both owned by NBC, both NBC owned by GE. GE, the largest military industrial contractor there is on this planet, right? Until Jamie Dimon got in there and kind of took it apart and, sliced it up and sold it as bologna, and he made a lot of money, and everybody else kind of took a bath. So, kids, I don't know if you can even remember the '08 collapse, right? But that was very, very good to me because they put zero interest money into circulation for like 8 years. And I did the Warren Buffett two-step, buy, borrow, die. That's exactly what I did. I bought things, stock, properties, businesses, you name it, borrowed the money because I had tremendous interest rate. I mean, I was a 900 guy, and, it was zero interest. I just kept rolling it over. And then just before I died, I pretty much sold everything and gave it all to the poor. Everything. All my wealth. I kept some spare change. I kept the deep green, and that's all I had. My car, the deep green, and really, my $400 a month. But I've been living like a millionaire for the last 11 years on that, right? Now it's gotten, they're talking about global warming, but no, the planet actually is freezing. Go watch the movie The Day After Tomorrow by Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. There he is. Huge rain here in the hills. I hope you guys hope you have enough trees and rain. I mean, trees and stuff to hold the rain. Yeah, everything's great. I mean, me, no matter what it is, as long as you follow the path that Jesus lays down for you, you'll be fine. If you don't, if your ego, well, I know better than Jesus, that's when good luck with that, kids. I don't get why a romance movie like Magic Mike would need to be in 3D, but I guess I'm about to find out. Me and a bunch of homies are going to see it in a Max Theater tonight. Well, just drop some acid and hey, you'll be in another universe. I think that's what it's good for. Or, some mushrooms or just go and have like 5 or 6, soft ice creams. There's so much sugar in it, and the coldness will put you into, diabetic shock, and then you'll really hallucinate more than mushrooms. I actually love it. Yeah, I've seen a few movies of that type. Back in the 80s, I guess it was, when I was with Christine, the girl who invented digital computer graphics, that little lamp in Pixar, that was her PhD thesis when she was 16 at Stanford. So she's the queen of that. SIGGRAPH. She started SIGGRAPH. She was one of the only women I can remember, except what's her name, the movie star who invented cell phones in 1940, right? Ida Lupino. She was an electrical engineer. She was the female Tesla, but she was so hot, Hollywood just wouldn't let it go. Yeah, I'm reading without glasses. Yeah, well, because you guys are putting in capitals. Plus, I'm taking these patches. They're called LifeWave. And that's why I'm not walking around, I didn't get my hip worked on. That's why my diabetes is doing, like today, I took my sugar, it was 91. I have a friend who's just having to deal with diabetes. His blood sugar has stayed, he hasn't gotten it below 500. And that's a lot of people because everything you go into a supermarket, everything has, what's wrong with our food is that it's industrialized, right? And so most of the energy goes into make grains that we feed cows who fart that make more methane than any oil well or, gas turbine or anything, right? And all you have to do is feed them seaweed instead of corn, but the guys make such a fortune on feeding corn to cows, they don't really care. Let's see. Good news for us old guys. Yep. So go, you want to know anything about LifeWave, get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and I can turn you on to it. I can send you links that will, you can get the whole, because it's not a drug, it's not anything, it's energetic. I don't know if you guys ever heard of med beds, right? Back in the 70s, at John Hopkins, we were working for DARPA to develop technologies to make Captain America, and that movie, he gets in that chamber and the light and the this and the that and all the drugs. That's what we were doing, right? And we were picking up from the Nazis. And how I got into that was back in the 60s when I was at Duke. I bumped into the Nazi doctor, Dr. Bittenoff, and he was doing real. Do you ever see Devil Boy or Hellboy with what's his name? The guy who keeps cutting off the horns. Anyway, when they find him, they it's like during the war, and the Nazis are on this Scottish island, and this English guy goes with some Marines to see what's going on, and the Nazis are punching a hole into another dimension to bring the demons in on their side to fight the Allies, right? So that's the movie, right? So that actually happened. That's where flying saucers and 0 point energy, all that stuff, because they just kind of copied what Tesla was doing it, and they added shamanic devil worship to it, right? Smart idea. Why do you think they lost? Dr. Bittenoff. I wonder if he listens to me or listens in. Who knows? So Dr. Bittenoff, do you ever see the second Captain America, right? So it's like now, at the end of the first one, he ends up waking up from being frozen, and he's in 2000 whatever, and he meets the guy head of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they're in Times Square, and the poor guy is like looking around like, what the fuck? and because he had slept for like 70 years. So then he becomes part of Shield, and then it's all hell Hydra, and so they go in and they go after these scientists that are hijacked and are on a boat out there somewhere, and the Russian girl, her kind of hidden mission, other than to get the guys, was to get the thumb drive of this really weird shit. She does. Captain America sees, because he sees everything, and so they get out by the skin of their chinny chin chin, and she's got the drive. They figure out, and they find themselves back in that same army base that Captain America, when he was a little shrimp, was trying to become a soldier, right? And then he volunteered to go in the box. So the easy bake oven. And so they're in the underground, and it's like, whoa, baby. It's like, Area 51 in New Jersey, So, and there is shit like that. I mean, Long Island is one big science, southeastern point of Long Island is like, it's where the Montauk Project was, and that's not what it was called. It had about 5 or 6, and it was Tesla built his big tower there, his zero-point energy wireless transmission in 1889, and J.P. Morgan bankrolled it. And once it worked, JP said, well, that's great, Nick, but, unless I can make money on it, I'm not going to use it. So I'm just putting this in the box till later, which he didn't. He handed it over to the dark side, the Hail Hydra kids, and they worked. They were doing shit, and so they had to jump on that shit ahead of the Americans. Now, the Americans did the Philadelphia experiment, and that was called Rainbow. I mean, all these rainbows, it's like not, Donald Trump would not like to know what DARPA had been doing from like 1939 until 1989, because virtually every project in the dark budget is rainbow this and rainbow that. It's like, ooh, that's where the LGBTQ scientists all were. So anyway, so we are in one of the most amazing times of history, because we're about to have the most amazing collapse of everything in the United States. And Donald Trump, I love me about Donald Trump, because he has destroyed everything that kept the illusion going. That's all that Joe was navigating, or the people behind Joe with the auto pen. And let's see, Phil Schneider, who built them, said in 96 that there are underground facilities and some are cities. Yes, more than 1,500, like 1.5 million, because they're everywhere around me. All these mountains are full of, why do you think, Oak Ridge National Laboratories is just, 40, 60 miles from here? Because there's tunnels and caves, and all of these caves are left over from ancient civilizations. Like, that's where like the pyramids, where it was an energy machine. They didn't bury anybody in those things. It was a machine. Anyway, and like the Sphinx, the boys who found it, I mean, the Sphinx was like buried by sand, and they saw the ears sticking out of the sand, so they dug up. They had enough slaves to dig it up, and so they did. And they said, oh, look at this thing. Isn't that pretty? And, that must have been one of those Egyptian things to the gods, right? No, sorry. Because when in the 1980s, some friends of the School of Archaeology that my friend Archie from Trinity in Dublin basically got a hold of. Why Archie got a hold of me is because I understood and had some experience with radar, and because I was Mr. High Voltage. So, I built special kind of ground penetrating radar, because it had just come around. This is in 69, 70, 71. I was hanging out with those guys from 69 to 75. But not all at once. I came, went. I was going to stay there forever until I made the faux pas of drinking all 3 of the pots of tea, right? And the third one, I could speak to the animals. I was like a Dr. Doolittle. And the guys, like not the horse, but the pigs wanted to get in the Combi, that's like a van, a European van, and they wanted to get in the convoy and go up to the bar, right, and go play pool and have some drink and pick up some chicks. And the chickens were in on it, and the dogs wanted to go. The horse was, I don't know, the old crone won't like this, And just as I was trying to get the horse in there and the cow into this convey, which was the size of a phone booth, that's when the crone, because she had been off doing her midwife thing for about 3 or 4 days, and she comes back tired, and there I am trying to get all the animals into the convey to go to the bar to play pool and have a drink and look for girls. And she just kind of went like, right, so you drank the third pot, eh? I said you could drink the first and the second, but don't drink the third. So that was the end of me being, it was like Mickey Mouse, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, right? But she still loved me, and still, I went on she brought me back to Trinity. I finished Trinity, went back to America, did my thing, came back, and, was hanging out in Dublin, and then I went to, the West Coast and to the Ring of Kerry, and then went up that road from Glendore, just by Galway, and that's where she was. And she was still there, And when I came to that place where the road ends and you can't really find your way through the forest to her place, she was waiting out by, like she was waiting at the mailbox, but there wasn't a mailbox. She knew I was coming, so she just kind of went through the forest. And once she was there, she got in the rental car I had and drive through the forest and went to the thing. I spent a nice 2 weeks with her. And we had grand fun, and I was intimating like I was ready to become her apprentice again, but I already failed the test, so I can be her boy, her the guy she can root for over there in America, and maybe when I really get old, she'll come looking for me again, right? I mean, I may have learned my lessons by then. So the last few days, um, you know, back, had my heart surgery in April. So April, May, June, July, I was sick as a dog, couldn't walk, everything was painful. And my sister sent me these patches, and I had been, wearing them since March. And so by end of July, like my, um, you know, diabetes sores went away, right? And I was feeling much better, and my mind was clear, and I could find my keys without having to search for them, right? And things just got better and better, and now I'm walking literally walking without pain. Now my range of motion isn't like what I was when I was 19, but it's 100% better than it was in July. And my foot was like sticking 40 degrees out that way. If you ever seen old people like hobbling along, look at their feet. If their feet are going, instead of being straight like they're supposed to be, they're going like one way or the other. This means their hip is like bone on bone. And so it's like slipping out of that socket, and the whole leg is turning, which will really screw the kneecap up and the ankle. So I had that screw up with my leg for 10 years, and now I'm better. So if you want to hear about the patches, give me a buzz on my email, thedudeawake42@gmail. And if you're in America, give me your phone number. We can talk. Otherwise, I can text you, or not text you, email you the relevant information, and you can go from there. Okay? Okay. So, old crone washes with Grace. Yep. And that's her name, Grace. I mean, I shouldn't say that her name's not supposed to be mentioned. Almost beyond time. Yep, that's her. You will always be her beloved. That's true. Yep, yep. And so that's, I feel it all the time, along with Jesus' love. And I'm such a puddinhead. I'm cheeky monkey, right? And I do all these things, and Jesus loves it. And all my, elevated masters are up for it, because the old crone isn't the only one. I have about 6 of them, that I studied with, just like I did with her. And Master Asake, right, who was truly amazing guy, because whatever school I was in, whatever mystery school I was in, he would walk through the door, and the master of that mystery school would go, "Master, Thank you for coming. You grace us with your presence. You haven't been here for 1,000 years. Why are you here? Oh, that moron over there, he's my boy. All right, so I've had a number of masters, but there's only one Jesus Christ, and there's only, love's co-creation, which is the covenant that we. And the whole thing is that love's co-creation is a covenant we have, right? And we are the ark, not like ark like the boat that holds all the animals, the ark, of human history. That's what we are, the ark of that, right? And if you understand that, and you open yourself up to that, and you let go of your ego, right? Right now, we are watching one big clusterfuck ego party. Putin and all these guys are just reading the script. I mean, all the academics lose their frigging mind. What do you got? A crystal ball, blah, blah, blah. It's all these different things, and they're all competing. And, no, fucking morons. All you have to do is read Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent. That is a brilliant book. Now, all those other books after were great, but they were just kind of like continuation. It's like a guy who writes a great book and then, like Whitley Strieber, he wrote The Communion, right? And then he wrote about 6 books about aliens, visiting his bedroom. That was okay. But then he wrote 2 other books that were truly, truly, truly amazing. You should go read Whitley Strieber's 2012. That was it. You should really go read that. That's like, it's the keys of the kingdom. And Whitley outdid himself. And then, he wrote the book with Art Bell, The Day After Tomorrow, and then they made the movie. Go watch that movie, because that's what's going to happen this winter. Exactly. And all those hurricanes that were in that movie, I mean, just have to look at what happened to the Philippines, what happened to Jamaica and all the islands there. So it's going to be a little nippy this winter. So I'm getting myself into the unmentionable space, which will be heated and protected by concrete walls. And I'm going to be in a sealed time capsule with 120 women between the ages of 60 and 112. So that should be a lot of fun. I mean, they are kind of fun. And there's only 6 other guys. And for me to get in there, 16 other people had to die since April. I'm going to write a script for a TV show that would be based on that. Mildred, answer this question. You'll stay alive. Otherwise, you're going to die. So Larry can move up and, So, how you kids doing? A great movie. Yeah. I'm writing, I've written 10 novels, which are all screenplays, and it's a 18-book series. Now my laptop died, and that's when my car died. I took it down the hill to my digital guru, and my car just didn't make it back up that hill. So, but it stuck me here for the last 15 weeks. I've only been out of here 6 times to go to church. The churchy people came and got me. And so all I did was, and I got to last end of August and September, early part of October. That was beautiful. Sunny like this every day, but with leaves, right? And 60 degrees during the day and 50 at night. So, guys, did you see the aurora borealis last night? The sun is really going nuts. And it might even fry a lot of satellites. And one of the reasons why Moron Boy, Mr. X, has his satellites so close to they're barely, out of the Earth's atmosphere. And he launches so many of them. He's got like 50,000 up there, so he can lose a few. But he's down there in the heavy part of the Van Allen belt, so they're semi-protected, where most of the communication satellites are like up in geosynchronous orbits and stuff, like 300 miles up there, where it's like hanging out in the blue or the black, right? So they're not really protected from anything the sun throws at them. So we've been getting some pretty. I don't know about you guys. How I mean, I have nothing. I didn't sneeze. Anyway, my mom. I had my mother sneeze. She used to go ah, and blow the house up. Right, the tables would fly against the wall. We all like fly under a table or something like it was like nuclear weapon. My mom's sneezes were nuclear. You're looking great. Stay out of the towns and cities. Yep, yep. Well, in reality, the big cities, yeah, stay out of those. But um, pretty much everywhere in America, you kind of, even like me, I'm way out in the middle of nowhere. And the rich people have come and bought up every square inch of this place. But the roads are destroyed, so no one can get here. But that means I can't get out. And if anything ever happened, like I needed some help, no one can find me. So that's why I'm going to this undisclosed location because it's a little closer to that. And if I call somebody, they'll know where I'm at. But otherwise, it's pretty much, don't get too caught up in the worry about, I mean, we're not going to have, I mean, we're already in a form of civil war. We have been since the Civil War. We never got out of the Civil War. And we've been at war, since the old men started the shell game of our republic, right? And you know what the economic term that what a democracy is? It's communism. Did you know that? Democracy is communism, where the state does is monitoring and working to do welfare for the public, just like the Romans did back in the day when they had bread and circus, right? So that's where it's at. So what you really have to have is your head on the swivel. You have to be seeing what's going on 4 blocks away. And when you see something hinky going on, you just go the other way. You get out of harm's way 4 blocks before it gets to you, right? So I'm going to be in a concrete building underground that's above ground. How about that one for an interesting spin? Anyway, meaning it's underground, but it's in a location that you can see what's going on for 100 miles. You know what I mean? It's like way on top of a mountain, but it's underground, right? It's like I said, this whole place is covered in tunnels and things that are just woohoo. And the deep green, I picked this place because it was super duper paranormal. I mean, Bigfoot is here. I was going to build a big house and a big this and a big that because I had cash, but then I got 2 places in Florida and 10 places in Virginia, and a couple places over here and over there, because I could get money for 0 interest, for 10 years. And then I bought it, and everything, the real estate collapsed. I bought 9 houses in this kind of worker little village that was right next to Roanoke and Blacksburg, right? Blacksburg kind of blew up because of the colleges there. So I bought 9 houses, 3-bedroom, upstairs with a bath, kitchen and living room and dining room and another bathroom downstairs and a basement. I bought 9 of those for $75,000. And then all these people who lost their everything and had no credit, and they would knock on I had one of those houses, and they knocked on my door and said, I hear you have a house for rent. And this one lady showed up at 9 o'clock. She had been sleeping in her car with 4 kids, for 2 months. And she was running away from her husband in California. And here she is in this little town of Virginia, and she's working at, she had a PhD, and she's working at Cracker Barrel. And, she had a uniform on, and so she goes, I have no real money. And I said, so what can you afford for rent? She goes, $200. I could have rented it for $800. And I said, here's the key. That house over there across the street, there's some mattresses that are kind of new. bed everyone down. Tomorrow, come over. I'm going to take you for breakfast down at the gas station diner, and then I'm going to take you over to Habitat because I was Habitat's project manager, and so I got a bunch, beds and tables and chairs and stuff, and put it in a Habitat truck, drove it over there. The Habitat boys delivered it and said, go to it, kid. And she would come and pay off the $200 every month with like $1 and quarters, and because she just paid me with her tips. And sometimes she was really late, and anyway, she stayed there, and then she got to have a boyfriend that worked in the tire place down the street, and he moved in with her, and he came over one day, knocked on the door. I said, "Listen, buddy, you were a righteous dude," and he had tattoos all over him. And he goes, "I'm a really good mechanic. I see you got 3 vehicles that seemingly don't run. I'm going to make them run. I'm going to keep them purring, and I'm going to mow your lawn and anything else you need because you're the dude, right?" So he did that, right? And her oldest daughter, who was about 12, was an amazing painter. And one day she's like fooling around with a piece of paper, and I had all this tempera paint. And I said, "Oh, boy, you're a good painter." And she goes, "Yeah, but I want to make a big mural." I said, "See those 3 cars?" And they were like, gray, or like whitish gray, like, a piece of gessoed canvas. I said, "Look straight ahead. What do you see?" "The mountains." I said, "Paint those mountains on the cars." And she did. Just the most beautiful, all the way around. The only thing that didn't get painted were the windows. I said, don't touch the windows. And I drove those cars around all over, and it was, so that's, for those almost 20 years, that was what I did. So when before the '08 collapse, I basically got rid of all of that stuff. And I sold each one of those houses because the girl who's the Cracker Barrel girl, the other 9 people that were like them. They had no money. They had no, how landlords want you have to pay $300 just to get your credit rating. I said, "I don't need that." "Do you need my credit rating? I can't afford it." I said, no, just move in. Just take care of the place, right? They all did. They were all proud it was their house. They all treated it like that. And after 7 years, I sold it to, each of those houses, it was like the peak just before the '08 crash. And those houses could have sold because it was no longer a worker neighborhood. It was now prime bourgeois territory. And I sold each one of those houses for $75,000. All 9 of them. 75, 75, 75, 75, 75. And those people could have sold them the next day for 200. So a couple of did, which was fine by me. And because Jesus said to the rich man, and the rich man said, "How do I get to heaven?" And Jesus said, "Liquidate all your wealth and give it to the poor." And now, when you liquidate your wealth, that's your wealth. That doesn't mean that's every nickel you have. So I kept the deep green, and I had my 2 houses. I kept 2 spots in Florida, and one in the Keys and one in Stewart. I had this great southern, plantation house right on the intercoastal and right where the opening for the ocean. And my buddy, who was a lawyer, if you go and look up in Stewart, the Blue Door, the people who did that were my buds. We did that together. Like I said, it was their money, my vision. And they were really artists and musicians too, but they were lawyers. And they were great lawyers. The husband, worked for the rich people and milked them. And the wife did every kind of, she worked for immigrants. She worked for environmental things. So we got these 2 buildings, and basically for nothing, I found them for nothing. And then we kind of put it together. They had, when you liquidate your assets, it does a thing to your credit rating where if you don't borrow money, you have a great credit rating if you don't owe anything, but no one will lend you any money because to get money, large sums of money to be borrowed. That's why Donald does such a great job because he's always, you know, in debt. And so if you're in debt, the bank will lend you 100 million, not a problem. But if you have, liquidated lots of things and you have a great cash flow and you don't owe anyone any money, it's hard. I mean, if you're ready to, it's hard to like get a car loan. But if you want to borrow, $100 million to put into a factory that's going to collapse, hey, sure, we'll do that. Give you a car loan? Oh, no, I don't think so. So that's what's kind of going on right now. And we are about to really, because Donald Trump, I love me about Donald Trump. In like 10 months, he has decimated the United States. And we're going to go into 3 extremely nasty military things. Israel is going to precipitate a total blowout war in the Mideast. With Saudi Arabia, with Iran, with you name it. They're gonna nuke things. They're gonna kill maybe 100 million people. Right now, don't believe a word I say. This is just your grandpa Sensie Owl Bob postulating what I used to get paid for. Right, and I was dealing with some people the other day, and they wanted me to help them, get grants and do this and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't have a clue. So they just want to talk about this, that, and the other thing, and blah, blah, blah. And I just kept cutting to the chase about this is what, if you want to do this, you got to have this strategy, you got to do this, you got to do, and they just would go glassy-eyed. And because they really didn't, they just wanted to blah, 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 right? It was like a hobby. Masturbation, the big King rally, useless. Because all it was masturbation. People, so 10 million people went out in the streets and said no kings. Big deal. If you want to do something, you have to. But Donald's doing the best of just taking it apart. He's doing more good in destroying the deep state than any of the Black Lives Matter, Me Too matters, none of that. That was all masturbation. Now, I know a lot of you guys out there are going, how dare he say that, But all I can say is get a big vibrator with D-cell batteries if you want to do that, right? Anyway, what are you saying here? In Jordan, there is a rock formation called the Eye of the Needle. Yes, and a camel can pass through it. Yep, that's what Jesus was talking about. Yep, go figure. So anyway, let's see. We've been doing this for 33 minutes, and you guys have been very nicely commenting. So I've just rambled on a bit. What do you think is going to happen in the next, between now and next January 10th? Let's see, what today is? It's the 12th. So January 12th, between now and January 12th, that's like about 2 months. So that's the rest of November, December, and a little bit of January. Where do you think we're going to be? So if the United States, back with dead Biden, not Sleepy Joe, but dead Joe, if he basically had given the tactical weapons that we have now given the Ukrainians, that war would have been over. And, Ukraine wouldn't have lost 170,000 people, and Russia wouldn't have lost 1.5 million people, right? But, the hidden hand wanted that to happen. They wanted Russia to be slowly squeezed, right? Because they want to turn it into Disneyland. They want to turn Russia and Ukraine into a Disneyland entrepreneur like California. It'll be the California of, because it has, it's the wheat belt of all of Europe. It's like the 3rd largest food producer if they don't nuke it. And Ukraine has always been an engineering phenom. All of the Soviet Union's technology came out of the Ukraine. And all the missiles, all the bombs, you name it, came out of Ukraine. So, of course. And when I lived as a boy in Harlem and the East Side, right, Second Avenue. Every 2 blocks a different nationality from Europe, all white folk, Ukrainians and not Ethiopia. Every country in the EU was on Second Avenue, and not only every country, but every like state and different categories of Polish people and different kinds of German people, and but it was great. It's like a zillion restaurants with amazing food and little bars playing, national music, and just it was amazing to grow up as a little boy in the 50s. But I could just walk. There was no crime there because grandmas ran everything. So if you did something stupid on the other side of town, that grandma saw you do it and told this grandma who told that grandma who told my grandma. So when I got home, she was waiting for me. So there was no crime, and everyone was striving to do amazing things. That was the beauty. That was called the Harlem Renaissance, and it peaked in the 50s. And Jim Crow did a. This is the other thing about political dynamics, is that there are things that get done. So Jim Crow tries to oppress the black people. What does it do? It forces all the black people to have their economy amongst the black people. So by 1963, the black folk had the seventh largest economy in the frigging world. And so after Jack got whacked, LBJ said, because all of the Ku Klux Klan politicians that are now mega people were Democrats, right? They were called the Red Dog Democrats. Now they're the Red Hat Mega Boys, right? It doesn't matter, left, right, Republican. No, they're the two wings of the same corporate bird. And it constantly pumps the same illusion. And it pumps it up, so the economy looks great, crashes, puts it into a depression. We've been in a depression since 1896. That was the first big one. And then there was another one before Woodrow Wilson. And he gives, hands the keys to the kingdom over to J.P. Morgan and lets him make a central bank, which, the Federal Reserve is as much part of the government as Federal Express. And Donnie didn't know that. That's why he can't touch it, because it's proprietorial. He, as the executive, has no power to it, period. Sorry, Donnie. And you'd think, as the big, real estate guy borrowing money from banks, he would kind of know that. Guy knows squat. He just reads the script. You can see it when he's on the Air Force. Someone's got the TV over the guy's heads, and the media is totally it's a corporate thing. ABC is owned by Disney. CBS is owned by, Paramount. NBC is still owned by GE. So it's like, come on, guys. Wake up, smell the coffee. Anyway, on its knees. Get it, right? So, rock formation called, yep. Go figure. So, it's two of you there, 43 minutes. It's 2:40. The sun has moved off my body, and in a half hour won't be keeping me warm. So, if you guys have any real questions, throw it on me. And subscribe, get other people to watch the show. In the hidden, the non-disclosed location, I'm going to be probably able to get my own internet something or other. Who knows? I have no idea. I have to get there. I know I'll be warm. That's all. And I know I'm going to have a nice bed and a real nice roll-up desk, a real desk. I'm tired of typing on my knees, So anyway, I will enjoy the simple life. And I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not bringing anything there except me and whatever else. So anyway, that's it on its knees. Get it? So what else do you think, huh? What else do you think? So the next week should be really nice here in this part of America. The folk up there near Canada, they're still going to be, winter's going to be, that's why I had to get out of here. Because last year, I nearly died. It was 20, for 4 weeks, it was 20 degrees below zero for for 4 weeks, and I was basically in a deep green. Then I went over, and there were all these people who aren't as adroit of survival as I, and they basically they were pokey folk, and they were just living under a tree. And we've gotten and put them in a safe place, but we all had to sleep on concrete, which was not good for my old bones. That did my legs in, right? And so, anyway, that's the story. It'll be interesting to see what you think. What else? So I don't know if I'll do a show tomorrow or for the next few days. So I haven't really done a show now since Sunday. Here it is Wednesday, right? So that'll probably, somewhere in that. Probably do something this Sunday if the church people come and get me. Anyway, that's the message. Okay, love you guys.